Hey, everybody, welcome back to Archaeology After Dark. I am your host, Daniel Rhodes. My guest today is John Samples. John, thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I am an engineer living and working in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm also the president of the Irish Society of North Alabama.
And that brings us to what we are talking about today. So, as you all know, St. Patrick's Day is this month. It is also March. So, Irish culture is, in the front of people's minds. And I thought it would be good to talk about what Irish culture means for Alabama. So, John, tell me a little bit about the society.
So, the Irish Society is a nonprofit organization meant to promote Irish culture through education, language, and the arts. We have a number of programs, the largest of which is the Huntsville St. Patrick's Day Parade, also known as the Ellen McAnally Memorial St. Patrick's Day Parade. And that is the major thing we do every year. Besides that, we also have Irish immersion events, uh, language classes. We work with different organizations to either participate in or help them set up their events, connect different groups together, and generally have a good time of it.
I mean, it sounds like a great time. I mean, I've been to Ireland, so I know that plane rides are tedious, and being able to get Irish culture right here in Alabama is great. Although Ireland itself is gorgeous, so if you guys get a chance to go, definitely do that.
Mm, indeed.
So, what's the history of the society? When did it start?
So the society started back in 2010. It was founded by a couple here in Huntsville who needed an organization around which they could build up the St. Patty's Day Parade as well as other events, uh, stemming from uh, how the parade had been done before. The Huntsville St. Patrick's Day Parade is actually the oldest parade that I'm aware of in this area. This was our 46th year. Um, and the couple that started it, they are very immersed in Irish culture. They have a private pub, which hosted a number of events over the past few weeks, and still are, with this being Irish American Heritage Month. And one of our visiting Irish VIPs said that the amount of historical artifacts on the walls of a pub, which is always the telltale sign of an Irish pub, would put some of the more historic locations, even in Belfast, to shame.
As someone who's been to Belfast, that's a lot to live up to.
Yes, it is. It is an incredible place to see. Pretty much every inch of wall is covered with artifacts, pictures, um, old road signs collected from County Leitrim, which is where the man's family is originally from.
So, outside of St. Patrick's Day, how do people celebrate Irish culture here in the United States, or specifically here in the north part of Alabama?
So one of the major ways they celebrate Irish culture is with music. We have a number of local groups, several local studios that specialize in Irish music as well as Irish dance. We did have a local dance studio that specialized in doing Irish dance. Unfortunately, they folded during the pandemic closure. However, that slack has been taken up by another dance school that they participated in the St. Patty's Day parade and actually have several of the same young ladies who were with the original. So uh, so there you have Irish step dancing. We have a number of traditional Irish music musicians in the area. They play what's called a traditional session in a number of different locations, and we're actually working with local businesses to hook them up. So when they want that live music at their business or at their venue, they have the people uh, they need to talk to.
So let me ask you this: the Celtic Festival that's at Belmont, is that one of your events, or is that someone else who does that one?
That's someone else's. Though I have made it a point of wanting to connect across to other organizations, other events, and participate in them as we can. But as I said before, we had a significant downturn, during the pandemic. Part of what is the core of Irish culture is community and the ability to be able to gather together to talk and do whatever. And when we were all just separated in our homes, that's just anathema to that way of doing things.
And that's, one of the cornerstones of why I did this program. I guess you guys were in similar situations to what we were. If we couldn't come together and actually be in the same room with one another, it made it difficult for us to actually talk to each other. I mean, just to plan an event, we had to all, dial in at the same time.
Yes, and we did that for a time with the language class, the Huntsville Irish language class. We were meeting weekly, but now here we didn't have the same strictures that you would have seen in other parts of the country and indeed other parts of the world. There weren't police officers that were going to stop us from meeting together. But as time went along, there were fewer and fewer people who were comfortable being out in public. So we moved to an online class, uh, but there we then had a twofold problem where we originally had the issue of what time could everyone meet. That was then compounded with how do we get this person on Discord?
And
Yeah.
and then you have the question from some folks like, what is Discord? What is Zoom? And how do I use it?
Exactly. I had so many issues where it's like I wasn't even doing Irish language anymore. I was doing IT, trying to help people out, and I thought I had gone for something where it was, okay, there's the button. Okay, it says download. Okay, now launch, log in. Okay, there we go, and everything should be good. But as happened a lot in the pandemic, whether it was work or social things, uh, people being challenged in their ID skills would get to a point and go, I don't know what's happening. I give up. And so sadly, the language class kind of fell away. Though now that everything's opened back up, we're wanting to get that started back up as a regular event, as well as host events of our own. Um, uh, One of the events is called a pop-up Gaeltacht. Gaeltacht being the name of an Irish-speaking region in Ireland. Here in the United States, we have this tradition of a pop-up Gaeltacht, which is an event where people can come and either speak Irish to each other or be in a position to learn the Irish language.
Now, see, I can see why the pandemic would make that difficult because if it's an event where people have to be there and you just don't get the same effect that you would an actual like person to person interaction. I mean, yeah, we can come together on a Zoom call, but being face to face with someone changes that conversation entirely.
Indeed, it does, especially because going back to the subject of Irish culture, one of the foremost elements of Irish communal culture is crack.
I'm going to need an explanation on that before I start jumping to conclusions.
Exactly. I love laying that trap for people. No, the word crack, spelled CRAIC, It's an Irish word that means fun talk, stories, and gossip. The the kind of discussion that you would have with fellow members of the community, maybe one on one, maybe in a small group, and typically nowhere more special than your local pub. So that would be the type of crack is the type of discussion where you may go and sit down and an elderly member of the community tells you about something that happened, say in the 1960s or 1950s, and you would sit there and you listen, or maybe you talk about recent sports or just politics or you know philosophy and life in general. But all of that was part of crack, and it's meant to be a positive form of communal communication.
Well, the reason I'm, trying not to laugh so hard right now is because that sounds like every archaeology or history conference I've ever been to, which a majority of the business does take place in a pub because
Hmm.
it makes giving bad news to people easier.
Yes, and that is you know bits of culture that have managed to come over here to the pond. That is a very strong cultural impetus that is actually all across the British Isles. You know, pretty much anything worth doing or worth saying started in a pub. Uh,
I mean, that's how revolutions start.
Indeed, indeed. Yes, one of the stories, from Alabama, we don't boast the highest Irish descent population in the state. We're actually in the bottom 20% of the states in terms of their Irish population. But one of the stories from the post World War One era was a a member of the Sinn Féin came to the United States to drum up support for the Irish separatists, and it kind of kicked off a whole snowball avalanche of things going back and forth that lasted all the way up through the civil rights movement uh, in the 60s, which again, Birmingham was at the center of.
So, see, Irish culture here in Alabama, we have it. Don't think that we don't.
Oh, yeah. Don't think that we do. Not only do we have Irish culture here, we also have a very strong desire for Irish culture. And why not? There's a lot that our state has in common with the Emerald Isle as a whole. A few small factoids. The corner to corner size of Ireland is about the same length as the state of Alabama, and the two populations are about the same. So, if you wanted a good feeling of, okay, how crowded is Ireland and how long does it take me to get places, and just use our state. You have a few sizable cities, but none of them are that huge. Maybe one is, and then you just have long stretches of highway going between them with forests and pasture land as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, lots of scenery here in Alabama and Ireland. Again, if you get the chance to go to Ireland, go. It's worthwhile. Trust me on this.
Hmm. Yeah. One of the discussions we had this past weekend was, you know, not just Alabama, but the entire Appalachian area, um, all the way from the south up through the northeast. When a number of Irish and Scots came over here, they settled in different places, but nowhere in greater concentration than in Appalachia. And a lot of that had to do with it was country that reminded them of where they came from. It looked like home. It was a slight bit warmer, but it still felt like home. And one of the more so spiritual connections I've liked to put onto it is the fact that the Appalachian mountain chain is the same ancient mountain chain that runs along the western side of Ireland, up through Scotland, and up through Scandinavia. Back when everything was one large continent, that was one continuous mountain chain along the north.
Okay, that I didn't know, and that's extremely cool.
Yeah. Now, uh, most of the mountains on the Ireland side have fallen pretty much into the ocean. That's where you get a lot of those sheer cliffs there on the left side of the island, on the west side. Um, but immigrants they came here to America, settled in Appalachia, including in Alabama. And going back to an earlier topic, one of the points of commonality that's always been shown off is how that Scottish and Irish music made its way into classical Appalachian music, and from there into bluegrass. And well, you can follow the chain of genres from there.
Yeah, I noticed that when we were in Ireland, we took a school trip a few years ago. They were big fans of country music there, especially Sweet Home Alabama. I was surprised they knew that one. And Country Roads Take Me Home was very popular.
Oh, John Denver, rest in peace, sir.
Gotta love John Denver.
Yes. Uh, Yes. Now, one of my favorite things to do, especially when people find out that my wife and I are from Alabama and we go traveling somewhere, they'll always start playing "Sweet Home Alabama," but we throw our local twist on it, where they'll sing "Sweet Home Alabama," and then my wife will shout, "Roll Tide, roll!" We were we were on a cruise ship with a young singer, singer songwriter from Nashville, my hometown, and she was one of the entertainers for that trip, and she played in the on board pub, which I went to on several occasions. But I don't know if she found out that we were from Alabama or there was somebody else from Alabama, but she started singing that, and then we cheered "Roll Tide, Roll," and she started laughing so hard she stopped playing, had to recollect herself, and start the song over again.
Yeah, I remember the first time I traveled out of the country, and I told somebody I was from Alabama, and I had to explain what roll tide roll meant, and
Hmm.
I still don't think they understood it, but they enjoyed the struggle of me trying to explain it.
Yeah. Um, just on a on another uh, slight diversion of that. Yeah. You know, uh, you can have people who don't understand culture here in Alabama, and they also live, in this country. My wife, who was born and raised here locally, she's from Madison. She went up to New York to go to school at the Manhattan School of Music, but the I guess you could call it the inverse culture shock. That's what I'll call it. The inverse culture shock by the people that she met up there, and they found out she was from Alabama, and they started asking her all kinds of questions like, "You're from Alabama. Uh, where's your cowboy hat? Um, uh, do, do do down there? Do y'all wear shoes? Uh, do do you read?"
Um, I've actually gotten the shoe question before too. It was
Oh,
really funny.
I'm sorry about that.
No,
Oh.
no, it's really funny though. The first time that I tell somebody I'm from Alabama, and they get like this look of like that's a real place. Like it is like both shock and awe at the same time. Like you live in Alabama. Wow.
Yes, and especially if you're in North Alabama, people think it's such a backwards place, and uh, and I'm sitting here like there's a Saturn V rocket within 10 minutes driving of my house.
Yeah, that's something that people love to see when they come to Huntsville is a giant rocket ship that never actually went to the moon.
When I graduated from grad school, I actually had a really prestigious and surprising key speaker at the commencement, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Uh, and but he said one of the best gags, and of course he's known for his turn of phrase, very affable individual who likes to, really likes expanding people's minds. And so his joke was, he was like, yes, Huntsville, Alabama, very scientific and space oriented. They have two Saturn V's, one in captivity.
It's true though. Oh,
Yes.
that's so true.
And this was the same commencement that, talking with the president of our university, mentioned that, he and the president had something in common. They had a scale model of a Saturn V in each of their offices. Dr. Tyson had gotten his, especially from, it was either from NASA or from JPL, one of them. But there at my graduate commencement, um, he told the university president that it wasn't a competition, but his Saturn V was bigger.
Ooh. Oh, them fighting words there.
Uh,
Uh,
so
so you said Alabama has one of the lowest Irish American populations. What states have the highest, or which state has the highest?
I believe up at the highest is going to be somewhere, um, Massachusetts, Vermont, or New Hampshire.
I'm actually amazed that it's not New York.
New York has a very large Irish population, but when it comes to sheer percentage, it's not as high as other places are. And truth be told, in a lot of the major cities up in the Northeast, New York, Baltimore, Boston, I believe, um, just like with the civil rights movement, they have kind of a dark history
Mm.
with the arrival of Irish immigrants. Um, you know, one of the points we try to make is that the history of of segregation and, persecution of one particular ethnicity or class of people is also Irish history. While you know, throughout the entire nation, north and south, people remember the photographs of, signs, whites only, coloreds only, and all those things. In a lot of the larger cities, you had another sign, no Irish need apply,
I was actually
Nina.
just getting ready to say that one, and that led to a lot of Irish Americans joining the New York City Police Department because it was a job
Hmm.
that nobody wanted to do, but it was still a high demand position.
Yeah, it was the police department, fire department. It was a number of things around the turn of the century as American culture was definitely growing more and more decadent, which then, of course, led to the Great Depression. Nobody was working, nobody was making anything anymore, and everything collapsed. But it was especially in those larger cities, it was really looked down on. Um, to be in a public service, a public service employee of any stripe. And so, it almost seemed like a match. You had a set of jobs that were really looked down upon, and you had a group of people that were really looked down upon. And you put them two together, which, looking at it, from 100 years later, uh, you see how that shaped, the way police departments and fire departments operate, the culture that they have on their own, as well as the stereotype of the friendly Irish cop.
With the thick mustache and the Irish accent. Oh, what you
Mhm.
doing out there, Will?
Yes, what you doing out there? The joke being that, once they did that, then the Irish had some amount of power, and the people who uh, uh, looked down upon them, and segregated them, were a little bit, yeah, a little bit hesitant to cause them any more trouble, especially because they're like, oh, I can call for a wagon and have you arrested. I'll figure out why later.
Hence it being called the paddy wagon.
Exactly. It's been called the paddy wagon. Uh, oh, that is the name Patty is one of those little sticking points I have to correct people on all the time. They keep trying to say Patty
Mm-hmm.
after Patrick. Um, and and we've done it through numerous things, whether it's through one of our educational events or through the parade. Say stuff, no, Saint Paddy's Day, because it doesn't come from Patrick. It comes from the Irish equivalent of the name, which is Padraig, Padraig.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where Paddy comes from. And yeah.
Now, see, this episode has been educational all around. So, folks watching this, don't ever say we never tried to teach you anything.
I try to fit in as much education on every single event uh, that uh, that we take part in, even when the event isn't going on. After the St. Patty's Day parade, I have a role in the parade myself. Once the parade is done and we've picked everything up and we've turned the um, organizational lot back over to the city and closed all that stuff out, I myself like to go around town visiting all of our sponsors. We're a nonprofit organization. We operate through sponsors and donations, um, and just the opportunity to talk to people, and uh, you know conversation starts innocuous. Hey, I saw you. You were on television. I saw you were at the front of the parade, and we would get into talking about something, and through one conversation leading to another, just share with them some anecdote, either about Irish history, Irish culture, or Irish American history.
So, getting close to the end of the episode, if people wanted to learn more about Irish history here in Alabama or just Irish American culture, what would you recommend to them?
So I do know of some other local organizations. There's an Irish Heritage Center, I believe, down in Hartselle. Birmingham also has an Irish society, a bit larger, a bit older than ours. Um, but one of the quick and easy things that you can do is to drop us a line at the Irish Society, and we are on Facebook as well as on the internet. Is that too blurry?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. Yeah. And even if it's not something that we ourselves offer, we're always trying to, like I said, make those connections, so that people can find what they're after. And if there's events and types of events that people are really after, we are very interested in putting those together, be it having to do with music, education, visiting schools, um, or other outdoor communal events like the St. Patty's Day Parade.
Yeah, speaking of, so the St. Patty's Day parade has already happened.
Mhm.
What other events you guys have coming up this month?
So, other events we have coming up this month is actually today, Wednesday the 15th. We have an event called an Irish Immersion Evening. And that is where we set up our traveling museum and library, and offer people an opportunity to get to know the society, um, uh, sign up with their contact info, as well as learn. I offer some different events of learning to speak and read some Irish music. Uh, one of the things I will always try to teach people is it's a very famous Irish song, Oro Shedeva Hawaii, uh, which is which is one of my personal favorites. I sing it and people go, "Wait, I know that tune. That's 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 What Do You Do with a Drunken Sailor?" And I go, "Yes, yes, it is." And this is where that tune came from.
Oh, and everybody knows what to do with a drunken sailor.
Mhm.
Everybody I've ever met knows that song, whether they intended to learn it or not. It's just
Yeah,
it's just ingrained in people's brains now,
yeah,
just from simply living here in America.
yeah. And I'll just launch into Oro Shedava Hawalia, Oro Shedava Hawalia, Oro Shedava Hawalia, Anisha Haktan Tarig.
Now, see, it loses something in the translation. The original lyrics are so much better.
But here's the fun part. The original song is almost like a march, and it's about welcoming the Irish home, not just, the people from Ireland, but the children of the diaspora coming home. And it has gained more meaning over the years. But the verses are actually pretty hardcore because they tell the story of Irish pirate queen Grace O'Malley.
Okay, that one I have heard. Fierce Lady.
Yes, absolutely. You have to admit it is a fierce lady to stand on the prow of your ship, 6 to 9 months pregnant, and order the shelling of a British fleet.
Well, the British did have it coming in more ways than one, and they usually do.
Yeah, depending on who you ask, they'll say they still do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Hmm.
As a student of history, I agree with that.
Yeah,
Well, that's just going to about do it for us here today at Archaeology After Dark. John, thanks so much for being here. I really enjoyed having you on the show.
I enjoyed being here. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care, everybody.